Welcome everyone. I am joined today by the lovely Caitie from Caitie Met Soda Jewellery, and she has her own incredible jewellery brand, which is why I invited her on. And we're going to be talking all about how to build a loyal following on Instagram. So to start us off, let's meet Caitie. Hello.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Caitie, yes, as you already said. And my business is Caitie Met Soda. And yes, I'm actually very happy talking about Instagram because I love Instagram.
It's great.
I'm always on it.
Good.
I know, although I did say to Paul the other night, we spend too much time scrolling through this. But I love it. No, I do love it. But yes, I've got my jewellery business, which I've had. It's in its 5th year now, which seems incredible. But yeah, and I didn't start it as a business, so I think part of that time didn't really feel like work particularly. And it still doesn't really, because I feel very lucky to be able to do something that I actually love doing. But yeah, no, any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, tell us a bit about how you got into jewelry making and what's led you to do it for a whole 5 years, because a lot of people drop out after a year or so and not sure it's for them. So what's helped you to kind of build it up?
I think, like I say, I was thinking about this actually before coming on here, but just going like sort of down memory lane. I think the fact that I didn't start it as a business initially was really helpful, in as much as there wasn't so much pressure.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't putting so much pressure on myself, but basically, in a nutshell, I'd gone to university and I went on to become a teacher, and which there were elements that I loved. Like, I love kids. I think they're just the best ever because they don't have the inhibitions that adults have. But unfortunately, while I was doing that, I became really unwell, and it was one of those things where I was like going back and back and back to the doctor, having every test, and they were sort of coming back. You know, they were saying they didn't really know what was wrong, and it took basically 2 years before I had an actual diagnosis. And over that time, I just sort of became less and less myself, I guess. And eventually I did have to, I had to leave teaching because I just couldn't do it. And I'm like, most people that know me know that I am like, what's the word? Stubborn to a fault. So leaving was incredibly difficult, even though I knew it was 100% the right thing to do. So I left that, and I spent kind of the first few weeks, probably like a couple of months, just at home, not really doing much. And that was actually when we got soda. I think at the time, I always say to Paul, I think he did it on purpose because I was like, I can't get a dog, like I'm not well, we live in a flat, it's all inconvenient, we can't do it. But I always used to look at pets online, like rabbits and like anything. I just used to like spend hours looking at them. And the one day I saw him, and I think it was literally just a picture of his face, and I was like, I know that this is my dog. He just looks so naughty. So we got him, and he literally must have moved in with us about 2 weeks later. And I think that was probably the best thing that could have happened, because it kind of actually forced me literally just to get out of the house to begin with, just to take him for a walk. And, we're in a flat, so I had to take him out to go to the toilet. And I guess it was like that initial kind of, oh, okay, like I have to actually now do stuff, that kind of started me thinking like what I could do while I was at home.
Yeah.
Because I was bored out of my mind. And I think the worst thing when you're unwell as well is actually to have nothing to do, because you kind of then are fixating on it.
Yeah.
It's like every sort of twinge that you feel, you're like, oh no, it's like getting worse. Or so Paul had actually given me a voucher to like a silver ring making workshop.
Awesome.
And so I thought, yeah, I know. Like, at the time, it was such a random present too, because I've done beading, sort of like beading stuff for like years and years and years, just sort of like therapy. I've always found it therapeutic. But at the time, I was sort of like, why are you giving me this? Like, what? I'm not going to be able to make a ring. Yeah, it was like, so I sort of didn't end up doing it. And then I thought, well, actually I'll go do it now, because I've got, So I went and did that, and it was literally like, I don't know, it's just like a light went on, and I was like, absolutely fascinated with it from that first time of like literally solder. I think it was the solder. When the solder went, I was like, it's amazing.
Caught the bug immediately.
It is. It's like, I think everyone loves that, don't they? When they see it, they're like, oh my god, it's amazing. And from there, I kind of worked out what I needed. Like, cooks, unfortunately, are really good at doing stuff like like the basic university toolkit, even though I wasn't going to uni.
Yeah.
Got myself one of those, and it was just, but I just used to sit and just try things, and I kind of like repeated making a ring over and over and over again, and then kind of different ideas start happening. And I guess like that's one of the things, I think I'm a very visual person. Like when I look at something, I can kind of, for some bizarre reason, deconstruct maybe how it's put together, and that doesn't always work, but it kind of gives me a like starting point. So so yeah, I literally just sort of sat at home doing that, and it literally gave me back kind of like a purpose.
Awesome.
And then at the same time as that, I kind of started a blog running alongside it, which was called When Caitie Met Soda.
And was that a jewelry specific blog, or was it a blog generally about your life and your experiences?
I think it was quite general. It wasn't really related like to jewelry to begin with. It was quite sort of, I think I talked a lot of rubbish, to be honest. But yeah, it was just like general, like whatever I kind of, because I love writing. Writing is one of my, you know, I think writing, photography and jewelry would be like my top three things I love. So I kind of started, and I guess like doing the two in tandem meant that there was going to be an overlap at some point. And then I actually made it was a set of rings, which are now the little comet rings, but I made those for my sister for her birthday. And she was kind of like, do you know what, you should sell them, like why don't you put them on Etsy, or you know. And at that stage I'd never even thought of selling on Etsy or anything like that. So it's still, like I say, she said it and I did it. It took a few months, and then I was like, okay, I'll give it a go.
So and then I think that kind of push to be like, oh, I can actually sell my work. It's not just for giving.
I think even that, like what you just said, like calling it your work, I was like, oh, but you know, it's nothing. I've just like done it from home. It's not, you know, it was very much word of mouth. It wasn't like, hardly any of it really was online, apart from like I had a very small following of people that would read my blog and comment.
We share a love of Instagram, great platform to work on, and as a jeweler you have a lot of followers. So how did you get your first 1,000 followers on Instagram?
My first 1,000 followers on Instagram. Do you know, I think Instagram, I say this like I'm really old now, but I've been on Instagram for quite a long time. The business aspect, Instagram is all quite new, and all like obviously all the features they're rolling out and stuff. But when I first joined, I think the what was really nice about it, being that I was at home and I was like unwell and I was kind of just starting out with jewelry, initially it was literally just like finding friends. So I would kind of like, I'd find one person who invariably would follow some other people that I might like, and I was very like, I'm very chatty, so I'd always like, without even realizing that it was actually what they now refer to as engagement and, you know, meaningful engagement and stuff, I was actually sort of talking to people quite a lot and building almost like friendships with those kind of first people. And a lot of those people actually I still talk to today, like 5 years down the line, just because we all kind of like started at a similar time, like our businesses kind of started at a similar time, so we were all learning together as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, the first 1,000, I think, to be honest, I think that felt really quite slow. Like that took quite a while, and then it's almost like once you've got 1,000, it kind of slowly like snowballs.
Gets quicker, yeah. How long do you think it took to get the first 1,000? Because I think people often think that that's going to be quick and then the rest is going to take a long time, but it's kind of the other way around, I think.
It is definitely the other way around. It's like for me, I'm always thinking, I don't know if it's like a throwback to studying psychology, but I find marketing and stuff incredibly interesting, because I think that initial 1,000 is like painful to get, and then once you've kind of got that 1,000, it's like, oh well, this person's got 1,000, like I'm going to follow them because they've got something to say. It's a weird kind of like thing that we feel comforted, or like we believe someone if once they've got that first 1,000. But that, like if you sort of go on a person's profile and then in the first couple of hundred, you know, you're kind of, it just doesn't look the same, and psychologically I think we feel bad about that, or like we feel like, oh, we don't have very much. Like my new my second profile that I've started, which is kind of a bit of everything now, like just a bit like me, a bit all over the place, but that like literally to get to 500 has been painful, even though on my other Instagram it's like, you know, everyone's like, oh my gosh, how did you get there, how, you know, you're so lucky. It's really interesting how the growth happens. But yeah, so the first 1,000 I think was definitely, I guess, more meaningful interactions, and that's one of the biggest things I say to people is don't wait for people to come to your profile. because they might never find it. Like, not being funny, but I think we're all quite egocentric. But actually, when you look at how many people are on Instagram, like the chances of somebody just stumbling across you are quite small.
Yeah.
Whereas if you intentionally are going out and finding people that are doing something similar to you, or even just other small businesses, doesn't have to be jewelry related, other small businesses. One of the other things I did with that initial first 1,000 was kind of like try and reach out to bloggers who at the time were really quite small as well. Like, they weren't sort of bloggers with huge followings, but just to kind of literally get your name, I guess, out there a bit.
Yeah. So what, did you email bloggers, or did you go through the Instagram platform to find them and speak to them?
Some of them I'd followed since I was at university, and like some of them are really obviously like really big now. But some of them I'd followed kind of for quite a while since I was at university, because I've always kind of like being a visual person. I love blogs, like going and like I love the writing, I love the photos, so it's all works well for me. But so and then a lot of them I actually did find through Instagram. Like, and to be honest, I think back in the early days, I don't even think it was so much like hashtags. It was mainly like I'm looking at Instagram now, but like the discover page, which is a bit rubbish now, I think, because I often get stuff. I'm like, when have I ever showed an interest in this? And what, like, the other day I had
a bit more random.
Yeah, like, when do I look at cars on Instagram? But I think the discover feed was really good, and also if you followed certain people, it would kind of like on your discover feed would appear other people that were quite similar to those people.
Mm-hmm.
So
would you comment on people, or do you just like them, or do you do a little bit of both? How do you know what to say to people when you first meet them on Instagram?
That's quite it's almost like dating, isn't it? You're like,
hello.
Pretty creepy. Yeah. To begin with, I think I was much more like, I was like, what do they call it? They call it like a ghost follower. I was like more of a ghost follower to begin with, in terms of like, I'd kind of like see what was going on, and or like if I would like pictures because that didn't feel very threatening. But then after you've kind of followed a person for a while, I feel like your confidence kind of, you feel almost like they're a friend. Like, I remember talking to someone about this the other day, and they were saying it's really weird, like, if you happen to actually bump into a blogger or someone that you followed for quite a while, because you feel like you know them because you followed them for ages. So I think it was that familiarity of having followed them. Then I would kind of start to comment on pictures, and then you can kind of quickly tell whether someone's kind of interested in what you have to say, or like, like in person, if you meet someone, you can tell if you're going to kind of click.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times, I would just like, even we would private message, just talk about things. So even then it wasn't kind of like, like to everyone else watching, they might not have seen like comments going back and forwards, but I was like, we were direct messaging. But I definitely think that sending messages, obviously, once you've got to a point of familiarity, but comments are like essential, I think, and meaningful comments. Like, I cannot tell you, I actually reply to comments on my picture now when I can tell that it's like a bot, because it irritates me so much. I'll get a completely irrelevant comment that's like, oh, what lovely fashion or something, and I'm like, no, loosely related maybe, but that's obviously not a person sitting there typing that. So I get really annoyed. I just reply, hello spam now. But like meaningful comments, I think, showing, because if you think about how, I know for me, when somebody actually comments something on a picture, like they're actually responding to your caption, or they're responding to the picture, it's actually like, it really does mean something. So I think people, everyone likes that. You like to feel like what you're sort of putting out there is actually resonating with people.
Definitely.
So I think that's hugely important, not only for you to actually be, because you can sit and go through, literally like pictures like, to your heart's content, and never see any result from doing that. But it's because it's kind of the same as if you went out and kind of just expected people to walk up to you in a coffee shop. But they're not going to do it. We don't do that as people. We only do it if we kind of have, you sort of say, oh, I really like your coat, and then you might start talking to someone and then realise, oh no, you live down the road from me, or oh, you're drinking the same drink I have. It kind of builds like that. It's the same online.
So compliments are a good way to start a conversation, it seems, on Instagram, saying that you like something about what they've posted, and
I think so. Yeah, exactly. So it is like dating, isn't it? Because you're kind of like, oh, well, you're doing, but yeah, because if you don't have anything nice to say, then it's a bit weird that you're following them, if that makes sense. Like, because then it's kind of like, well, why are you here then?
Yeah.
So when I always feel like compliments should be genuine. You shouldn't just sort of say it for the sake of, because then it does come across as inauthentic as well. But the thing is that's the nice thing about something like Instagram. You're following the person because you've kind of got a shared interest, or you like their page, or you like something. So it's often quite easy to think of something nice to say, even if it's just like, oh, I really love this post, like a more general compliment, till you build your confidence to figure out, what you want to say. But, I'll get sort of I've had people comment on my pictures that, will just sort of say like, they've clearly read the caption, and that always means quite a lot to me. And then we'll end up having a little like conversation in the comments kind of thing. And then I'll go check out their profile, follow them, because you're kind of like, oh, I like this person, there, whatever. So
yeah,
it's definitely,
I
think,
treat
it like dating. I think it's like dating.
Like dating. Go out on date, thousands of people on Instagram.
Exactly. I think that's what we think. I'm a bit of a player. I'm like dating everyone.
And so now you've obviously got thousands and thousands of followers on Instagram. How do you manage, having these lasting connections that we're talking about with that many people? Does it get overwhelming? You were saying before, sometimes you feel like you spend too much time on it. How do you manage that around all the other things that you've got to do for your business?
There are definitely periods of time, I think, when it's overwhelming, in the sense that, you'll go through like pockets of getting like quite a lot of direct messages, for example. And I'm always very conscious of wanting to reply, because if someone's taken the time to reach out to me, then I really want to be able to reply properly. So what I often do in those, like over Christmas, for example, was just crazy, because not only did you have the orders coming through, which were absolutely amazing, like, I mean, I just couldn't, like, I was pinching myself the whole way through Christmas. But, you have that, and then you kind of have people, because with any brand, there's a story attached to it. And people, when people resonate with that story, like if somebody gets in contact with me and says, there's a part of my story that really helped them, or not even helped them, but just that they really, like, they felt it, as opposed to just sort of like going, oh, that's interesting. Like, they really felt something when they heard it. That's really important to me, that I kind of, just on a personal level as well. So what I tend to do in those situations is I will always kind of message someone back and just say, I've got your message. I really want to reply to it properly. So don't worry if you don't hear from me for a little while. I'm kind of on it, type thing.
Yeah.
And in terms of like, sometimes on pictures, you can't reply to every comment always.
Yeah.
Depending on what's going on at that particular time, or if you've got heaps of orders, or if you've got, you just can't. It's not always possible. So I do always try to like, now that you can like comments, that's quite nice. So you can kind of show the person that you've registered that it's there. And then what I tend to do, which maybe, I don't know, some people do it to me sometimes, that actually doesn't, like, it always makes me think, oh god, yeah, they did get it. So like, sometimes it can be a few weeks later, and I'll kind of go back over old posts when I've got the time and reply to comments.
Yeah.
So it also really depends. It depends entirely on, like, it's very weird. Like, even like now, for example, the weather's perfect. Like, people will be much quieter, because they're out.
They're not on Instagram all the time.
Exactly. So it's like, people are out, and so all of a sudden you'll kind of get everyone, wanting to do something at once, and you dedicate almost like a period of time to it. So whether that's an hour a day, or, broken up into 10-minute sessions, or whatever it is, like, I will very often just sit for like 45 minutes, an hour, reply to comments, find new people to follow, depending what's happening on Instagram on that day, go through stories. I often reply to stories quite a lot, because I love stories. I just think they're like, it really gives you much more of an insight into the person, and people are like a lot more relaxed, I think, on stories, which is nice.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk about stories, because do you do stories every day? How do you use stories in your business?
I've been a little bit quiet the last little while, actually. I was really, like, over Christmas.
Is that Instagram shame? Is there some Instagram shame there?
A little bit quiet, but so over Christmas I was really on it. I find it really, if I'm in my studio every single day in terms of like physically making stuff, then it's actually really easy, because you just take a few snaps throughout the day.
Yeah.
If you're kind of doing more boring, like, admin-y stuff, or like, even when I'm kind of taking photos, which sounds bizarre, but sometimes I don't find it as easy to find those natural openings to do it.
Yeah.
And then I kind of get to the evening and I sort of think, does anyone really want to hear what I have to say about my day? And then, I sort of think, oh, well, actually, there are going to be some people that don't want to hear it, but they're going to swipe away, and that's fine. And then I'll sort of do something. Often I do, like, Soda's quite easy. He's always on there. Probably, he's that poor dog, doesn't know? He's all over the internet. Or when Paul gets home from work, I know, he's like, but
so do you do behind the scenes type things for your stories? Do you show like your making process, your studio? What
Yeah,
kind
a
of
bit
things
of
do you
everything
do?
actually. I think I show like quite. I think that's one of the what I think. I don't know. I mean, it might not be the same for everyone. Probably I've had people unfollow me since I started doing stories because like, what are you doing? But one thing I love about it is that it really shows the uncurated side of life. So like when I'm in my studio, it's really I love taking pictures like while I'm doing stuff, and also that kind of serves two purposes for me because one of the things I've always done from the very beginning is show customers progress of their piece.
Oh, lovely.
So yeah, so being able to do I used to do that like individually, in emails. And then obviously it kind of gets to a point where you can't, it's just not possible to do that. So now having stories is just great because it means you can literally like kind of update. I'll sometimes even tag people if I can remember their handles because quite often I'll have people talk to me on Instagram before they necessarily place an order. So it's it's a very, from the beginning, it's been quite a personal business, if that makes sense.
And that comes across with what you do in your posts. And I love, one thing I love about your Instagram is your posts are not just like, here's a piece of jewelry, like off you go, enjoy it. It's often like a little story or a message or something quite heartfelt that you put in pretty much every one of your posts, which I think is a really good way to connect with people.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. It's like sometimes I think like, obviously when it's yourself, you can't really tell what it sounds like to other people.
Yeah.
But I think because if you go all the way back, like I'm looking at my Instagram, if I scroll all the way back to like the beginning, when it was all over the place, like there was some jewelry, there was some pictures of dogs, there was just everything all over the place.
Finding your feet.
Yeah, and then I look at the captions there, and I actually think like you can very much see the progression of finding, I guess, like my voice in that. And I think that's something people are unnecessarily hard on themselves about. I get a lot of people that will message me or email me and ask me, particularly people kind of looking to start out in jewellery. And it's just totally a kind of a confidence thing. And it's almost like that thing. I remember my mum always saying to me at school, you come home, when I was at like primary school, you come home upset because this girl was playing with me one day and then she didn't want to be friends with me the next day. Or, it's very much that thing of actually accepting that there are going to be people that don't like you or like that, or that are indifferent, let's say. And then there are going to be people that love what you do and they'll support it 100%. And those are the ones that you want at the end of the day. So I guess with my posts being personal, and I think maybe sometimes people are like, how do I share that with people I don't really know? For me, I've found that really empowering because it's almost like giving myself permission to fully be that person.
Yeah.
And so when I'm kind of, I guess also working from home, I've got a lot of time to think about things and, sort of, again, with loving writing, I think it's kind of just been able to combine things that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
So that I do try, and then you can see over busier periods, sometimes my post will be much more to the point, and then you're like, okay, I'm busy. But I do try to kind of make it a whole, I guess it's like you say, not just having a picture of jewelry, it's a whole lifestyle or experience or like family that you become part of, through this passion for one thing. Because at the end of the day, anybody's pictures, if you deconstruct them, flat lays the works. They're just pictures that have been well put together or less well put together, or things, things in there that you like or the things in there that you don't like. But it's kind of the whole package of what someone does that I like. The people I follow, I follow a lot of like poetry people, for example, and it's just like every time they post, I'm just like, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you always have something to say that's so relevant and like always, resonates with me. So yeah, I think it's very much though finding your own voice and having the confidence to do that. And if people don't like it, don't worry about them.
Yeah.
Focus on the people that do like it, like you would in real life.
Absolutely. I think as for you as a jeweler as well, you're obviously looking for customers on Instagram. So people who are actually interested in you and your story and your brand, but your jewelry and who want to buy it.
Yeah.
How have you found your target customer on Instagram? Is it through hashtags? Is it through knowing certain people, or is there sort of a different process that you've used?
There's definitely there's different pockets of people. So rather than like one, because I was like, for kind of a lot of last year, I was like, right, who's my demographic? Who's my, ideal customer? And, people say that to you. They say like, literally sit down and think about who you want, and then But what ended up happening was that I found I've got very sort of distinct pockets. So by pockets, I mean, so say from right back in the beginning when Instagram was more like you were making friends and finding similar people, I developed some very meaningful friendships with people who, you know, were very kind in being like my first sales, like supporting me because we were like, you know, chatting and everything. And actually a lot of those people were in the States. So that was really cool because I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, you know, going to America.
International jewelry.
Yeah, and it was like, and then those people have subsequently done very well on Instagram, and then have, you know, it's very simple, like had just one girl in particular will always be wearing like a complete stack of my rings. Oh. So I've had customers for a long time that have just happened to see them on her and love what she does, so they'll kind of find their way to me like that. Mm-hmm. And then another thing I mentioned, which I did a lot, was trying to work with, I say bloggers quite loosely because I think blogging has advanced now, and as much as it's not quite what it was in terms of just having a website where you had your blog, it's now like you can almost be a blogger on Instagram on its own.
Yeah.
So there were people that I sort of really liked, you know, it might be something like they loved dogs, or they loved, speaking of dogs.
Cue Soda.
He sounds ferocious, I'm telling you.
Oh,
So, come here.
He wants to join in.
So finding a common, so say that person had an Instagram page, and it wasn't even like, for me, I didn't ever really think about it in terms of how many followers they had.
Yeah.
Because often where people get hung up, I think, is the number of followers that you have that are particularly active and engaged. So if somebody had 50,000 followers, if someone had 100,000 followers, that didn't necessarily sort of make me think, oh, well, yeah, I definitely have to get in contact with this person. So what I did try to do was kind of just find people that I felt would like what I did.
Yeah.
Or we're kind of like we could kind of work together in terms of like they did something I liked and I might do something they liked, or like our images could go together. And bearing in mind, like my images back in the day anyway were hideous, so we'll just skip over those. But so there were kind of those people that I would send stuff to, like literally, like, you know, I know they say the first I don't know how many years of having a business you're just losing money all the time, but you know, just send stuff to
and ask them your actual jewelry.
Pardon?
You send them your actual jewelry, not just images.
Yeah, so I'd send them, like, ask them if there was a particular piece, like, and genuinely ask them for feedback as well, not just like, oh, okay, I'm going to send you this, you know. I'd ask, you know, if you know, maybe like what I do, is there anything that particularly speaks to you? Because to me, the connection was very important as well, to have that connection. So literally would send, you know, rings or pendants, whatever, and sometimes you get a good response and sometimes you don't. And I was always very specific about the fact that I did not want it to be something that there was pressure attached to it. So I didn't want the person to get it and think, oh, I actually don't like this, and then say something nice about it. Because to me, I thought, and again, I think that goes hand in hand with me having not quite started it as a business. I really was looking for almost like just feedback, you know, because at the end of the day, I'm predominantly self-taught. So it was just getting that, do people like it? What do they like about the experience? So through doing that, again, you kind of don't realise that you've got another person walking around wearing something you've made, going on Instagram, taking pictures. Often they're just in the background of things. It's not even the focus of the image.
Yeah.
But
people might ask about it, I guess, or people might say, "Oh, I love your ring. Where's that from?" And then you can get tagged in it and all sorts.
Exactly, and it's very much, I think, that groundwork that you lay, and it goes back to what I was saying of kind of, because I think you know, we're all guilty of it, and me as well. For the first building that first 1,000 followers, like I said, wondering why don't people come to my page? Why don't they like my page? Why can't I make my page look like this? And then I just thought, you know, you can't do that. You've actually got to go out there and you've got to be, you know, a bit ruthless about, you know, like, hello, this is me, you know.
I'm here.
Exactly, I've arrived. And that's not something I'm naturally very good at. Like, Paul used to do that for me, my partner. We'd be in any conversation anyway, go, oh, Caitlin makes jewellery.
Do you know what? I think so many jewellers, we're awful at it. We love sitting at our bench, making our pieces, you know, focusing on the design. And then, you know, it's hard to go out and be like, by the way, I make jewellery and I totally want to tell you all about that. And
exactly, and I really want to, and that's the thing I think is tricky, what you were saying as well about Instagram is, for me, it's very personal, but at the same time, obviously, you do want sales. We all want sales. We all got to make a living, and that's the balance, I guess.
Yeah.
Like between because I always was very aware of not what, and I'd always used to say to Paul when he would do it, I go, I don't want to sound like I'm just like flogging my stuff, you know, like, if people are interested in what I'll do, they'll ask. And he was like, no, you have to, how else there's no other way to do it, you know.
Sometimes you've got to be direct.
And I think, pardon?
Sometimes you've got to be direct, like, here's the link to my Etsy store. And
exactly, and get people, even asking like friends on your Facebook. I cringed, I like died a little bit inside when I posted something to Facebook. I think it was after I'd had, when Caitie Met Soda maybe like, as in like been making jewellery like a year, and I posted it to Facebook, like, you know, friends and family, this is what I've been up to, kind of thing. If you're interested, take a look. And I think people were genuinely shocked, because I don't know what they thought I was doing, but obviously I'd not really spoken to anyone about it. So it's really nice, actually, because people were like, oh, you are doing, you know, it was, you know, that, and I think that feeling, being self-employed, having your own business, it's the most rewarding thing in the world, but people, I think, underestimate how isolating it can be, and how you're not getting that validation from a co-worker or from someone above you. For sure. You're really only getting it from people that you're kind of pushing yourself out to. So that process of sending stuff, you know, out of the kindness of your heart, even though it's costing you money, and asking for genuine feedback, like, that is so valuable for you to grow, and also has the added benefit that, you know, people, like 9 times out of 10, they're like, oh my God, this is amazing, like, that you want to do this, or you felt this, you know, connection. So it's really a very beneficial process, I think.
Yeah.
And also, like I say, don't let numbers, you know, in terms of how big a person's following is, like, because, you know, that's the wrong motivation, I think, to go into it with. And often, like I say, you can have a massive following and the engagement is like not rubbish, you know, like people are kind of just so, and that's something I'm always working on, is like, you know, getting more people engaged, and, you know, getting people to actually, like I say, it be more than just looking at jewelry, but then at the same time you have to be realistic, in as much as, you know, it's not a personal account, it's a business account, and people kind of, we all do it, we go through phases where we love something and then we're a bit quiet and then we come back, and, you know, so it ebbs and flows, I guess, like everything in life.
Definitely. And how do you, in terms of your sales on Instagram, do you get direct sales through Instagram? Do people message you about commissions, or is it, how do you actually get your sales through Instagram?
I definitely, you know, Instagram, I'm always like I said, I sound like I'm a blooming spokesperson for Instagram. Don't get me wrong, there are loads of things that annoy me about Instagram too. We'll get onto those in a minute, no, but I definitely, obviously on my own, I moved onto my own website quite early in the day. Etsy is good now. They didn't used to be as good, I didn't think, when I first joined, in terms of showing you where your traffic came from, but then towards the end, I mean, I still have my shop, but I tend to focus predominantly on my own website now, because I have enough from that. But when Etsy started showing traffic, I think that was the first time I was like, oh, like, you literally can see the direct clicks coming through from Instagram.
Yeah.
So what tended to happen is I would kind of get people that would see an image. So initially they'd sort of see an image on Instagram, and then they would email me with that image and say, like, what is this? Because they might not, again, it was very basic, I think, Instagram for business. Like, for quite a while, it wasn't really like, you know, you could have your website there, but it still wasn't quite as advanced as it is now, like, you know, the shoppable links and all that stuff. But so I get emails with like maybe a picture, and it would be like of a couple of rings or a pendant or whatever, and then I kind of go from there. Like, often I would just even invoice directly with like PayPal.
Yeah.
And then as it grew, I kind of direct people to my website and say, you know, it's this is the specific product you're looking at, goes really well with this, you know, link selling.
You've got the info on there ready for them, I guess. So
exactly, and it's, you know, you want to kind of, from, I believe anyway, from beginning to end, whether your platform is Instagram, whether people are emailing you, whether it's on Facebook, even though I do much less on Facebook, I do get people coming through Facebook and asking, oh, you know, my mom's seen this and but I don't know which one it is, or, you know, whatever. From beginning to end, the whole experience should be what you want your brand to communicate. So if that is, for me anyway, I always hope that people will feel comfortable, and that it will be like a really nice experience. You know, it's not going to be just sort of like, oh yeah, I've got your sale now, I'm over it, you know, moving on.
Yeah. You really care about your customers.
I really do. And yeah, so with my website, I get sort of a Google Analytics does like a monthly report where you can obviously see where things are coming from and countries and whatever. So I can kind of then see from that like I've got a lot of people in the States, which is wonderful. I love, my American ladies, they're great. And then I've got, one thing I really focused on last year was actually expanding within the UK, because I was like, I want to be local and I want to be, like, I thought it's ridiculous. Like, I live in a craft town and people don't know I make jewellery. Like, I was like, this is absurd. So, it was very much, and then, so being able to see that then gives you quite a lot of validation, because you're going, actually, the photos are working, or my captions are working, or something's working. So Instagram has been a massive thing in terms of sales. But again, I think there's a danger with that, in as much as I sort of was quite reliant on that. And then I thought to myself, I actually need to be more in the physical world as well. Like, you definitely have to have a balance of, like,
actually
the two
meet
things.
Customers face to face, craft fairs, that kind of thing.
Definitely. I actually haven't done any craft fairs. I would love to do a craft fair.
You should. You'd be great.
Like, I keep saying to my mom, we need to do it, because my mom is wonderful. She often helps with the packing.
Yeah.
Like packaging stuff, which people see on Instagram stories, bless her. She gets so, she's like, oh, I don't know if I've done it wrong. I'm like, you haven't done it wrong.
So, okay, a couple more questions. So I'm aware that we're coming towards the end of, I'm aware of your time and everything. One is just about hashtags. What hashtags do you use, and how does that work for you on Instagram?
I tend not to stress about them too much, because on pictures you can get such variable, like I'm looking, sorry, at my insights, but you can get such variable, like often on my hashtags, it will actually be lower than people are directly coming to my profile.
Yeah.
So I do get people finding me through hashtags, but it really seems quite hit or miss.
Yeah. So
and I know there's quite a lot of different theories about that.
Yeah. Can you actually see in your business insights then how people find you on Instagram, whether they find you through hashtags?
Yeah, it shows actually now. It shows you get where your impressions are coming from, basically. So whether it's from the home screen, from your profile, from your hashtags, and then from other. I don't know what other is. Or that's that. I mean, maybe that's stories. I don't know.
Yeah.
What I do find really helpful, personally, outside of hashtags, is location. So when I add my location to a story, for example, I will get a lot more views than if I hadn't put the location.
Oh, really?
So that's quite interesting, and that is also, do you know what I like about that? It's like when I go visit my sister in London, tag that I'm in London, because then I've got people that are, doing what I do and scrolling through and going, oh, what's going on, So I've found people that are much in my kind of more immediate circle that way, which is nice. People that might just be walking down the street and I didn't know about them, but they're also where I live. So I use location a lot. My philosophy on hashtags is I try to use ones that I would look at myself. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So with smaller multi-business, I'll always look to see who's popped up on that. Or like, I've got, jewellery with meaning, for example. Like, that's always interesting to me, because I want to find other people that are kind of, it's not just a piece of jewellery, it's something special. Or jewellery designers, some of them are quite generic. And I try hashtags, very importantly. I think the biggest thing is to stay away from the ones that are like really very populated.
Yeah.
So if you've got, I think Sam said, if it's got kind of over 1 million submissions, you're just not going to get seen.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a pointless endeavour. So almost, it seems counterintuitive, but going to the hashtags that have much fewer, you're more likely to get someone that will see you that way, if that makes sense.
For sure. Yeah.
But yeah, location, I don't know why, I'm still learning about this, but location I highly recommend.
Okay, we'll try it. We'll give it a try.
Yeah, it's a little bit, I always think it's a bit like maybe stalkerish, but whatever, it's cool. What I try to do is actually just think, do you know what, like, I'm going to do the hashtags, and I'm going to try use ones that I would look at myself, and I do actually look at hashtags, and that's how I often find people, but I'm not going to sit there stewing about it, because there was, like, the other day, someone was having a big, I can't remember where it was, on some community forum thing, but someone was saying, oh, actually hashtags only work if you post them in the actual description rather than the comment below.
Yeah.
And I thought,
there's been much debate about which ones.
So I mean, I've done that for quite a while anyway, so I wasn't really, mainly because what ended up happening, I'm very anal about stuff like this, but I post my post and someone would comment quickly before I got the hashtag comment in there. Yeah. I was like, now it's awkward because now I really try not to worry about stuff like that, because honestly, that is a complete waste of your time and energy. Focus, like, to me, the things to focus are improving your pictures. Like, pictures are, as much as we say, like, you absolutely don't have to have the best equipment or anything like that, but focus on the composition of the photo, the lighting and enjoyment of what you want that picture to say, that to me is worth so much more than any of this other nonsense that goes on.
And that's long lasting, isn't it? Because those images you can use in lots of different places and they'll be there forever and people can come back.
It's an actual use of your time. That's the thing. You've got these, once you've got, worked on images that you feel happy with, you've got them for Etsy, you've got them for your website, you've got them for Instagram, it's like, that's an actual productive use of your time, whereas sitting and worrying about whether or not you're kind of
location.
It's not, but it's easier said than done, because obviously you go through periods where you go, I'm not growing enough, I'm not, but
coming on to photography, actually, because I'd love to talk with you briefly about that before we wrap up, because you have gorgeous images. I love your images, and if you haven't checked out her Instagram yet, absolutely go check it out and take a look at some of the images. We'll put the links and everything below. But how do you do your photography, and do you have any top tips for jewelers getting some nice pictures of their work?
I think for jewelers, photography is actually extremely important, purely for the fact that it's actually really hard to capture something. Like, jewelry's small, so the level of detail that you have is quite difficult to actually capture that and communicate that to somebody. And often, going back to when I was kind of less, I guess, experienced with photography, people would get something they'd ordered and they'd go, oh my gosh, I had no idea it was going to be quite, as detailed or quite as, and I was like, oh, well, so I think that kind of feedback, when people were pleasantly surprised, was what made me sort of go, I need to up my game now. I really need to work on this. And actually, again, it's about communicating. I look at it in a roundabout way. I need that image to look how I see it with my eye. So, in terms of photography, a lot of my pictures on Instagram, sorry, I'm looking down, I keep scrolling. A lot of my pictures on Instagram are taken with a DSLR.
Yeah.
I don't have the newest one or anything like that. I actually had it, it's a throwback still from when I was finishing uni and got I'm a kind of a magpie. I get into things, and photography I got really into. Nice. That one stuck, fortunately, because I was really annoyed about buying the camera. But so I actually bought the camera. Pardon?
So you use your DSLR, and then do you have lighting and?
I've got that was very recent actually. I got it was very cheap, softbox. Well, not those ones you see. I did try the ones the small boxes for photography.
Yeah.
For jewelry, I tried that and I didn't really get along with it because I found maybe it was the one I had, but the lighting felt quite sterile.
Okay.
So what I ended up getting, which was actually recommended by my friend Sophie Arnott, who's wonderful.
Yes, mutual friend.
She's like, I love her, honestly. She deals with a lot of meltdowns. But anyway, she recommended it was a softbox from Amazon, which is just a standing one. It was really inexpensive. And that I use in my studio, and that's literally has revolutionized my life, because I can take photos at midnight now and they will be light.
Yeah.
So I've got the DSLR, I've got that lighting, and then I kind of have been amassing, I guess, a collection of props, and just from all over the place. Honestly, props are quite fun to hunt for, and I really enjoy that. But then I've also got a mix of ones that I've taken on my phone, and a lot of that you can be very clever with editing. So I use, for my kind of shop photos, I use Lightroom to edit, and I use my DSLR.
Yeah.
And then for when I take a photo on my phone, I've got kind of a selection of apps that I'll then use to edit it. And often, it's amazing what you can actually do. I would tend to stray away from using my phone for actual product photography in terms of on my website, purely because I still don't think the quality is quite there.
Yeah.
Particularly for jewelry in terms of showing the detail. But for stories, for kind of an overall impression of your day, for flat lays, I think phones are fantastic now. They do a fantastic job. And if you don't have a DSLR, but you have a phone, and you are able to get something like a really inexpensive light box, it works amazingly, the combination of the two. So it's just being inventive with what you have, because all small businesses, no one wants to go out and spend loads of money on the top camera that you actually don't know how to use, because I'll be honest, there's still settings in my camera I don't know how to use. But yeah, just really trial and error, and get to a point where you, like I say, I think of it as, does this photo look how my eye is seeing it? Because if it doesn't, then keep working.
Yeah, you want it to be really lifelike.
Yes,
Give the
but to
customer that
give you the
experience.
feeling that you feel when you look at it, it's like it's so much more than it just being that flat image. But and like I'm not at all trained in photography in any capacity, so my advice is pretty rubbish. But
No, it's
I
great.
really
You
love
give great
it.
pictures.
I really love it, and I think that's a big thing. Try and enjoy it. Just have like relax into it a bit. And don't compare yourself to anyone else. Because
that's a good tip.
helpful.
That's a good general tip as well for Instagram.
In life, I mean, yeah,
life.
Life on the whole, but definitely with your business, don't do it either.
Yeah. It just makes you unhappy. No matter how well you're doing, it's going to make you feel unhappy if you start comparing. So
definitely, and I mean, you can have the best day and be like, oh, I've taken some amazing pictures, and then you go on and you're like, oh no, I'm still not. It's just not even worth it. By all means, use people for inspiration. So I'll sort of like look at somebody's feed and there'll be like an element of it, like it might be really light and airy, or their pictures might be like really dark and like meaningful, or like, you kind of, there's different things you can pick up from different people. And that I think is a really, really good thing to do and very healthy. And you kind of need to do it because otherwise you don't end up developing, I guess.
Isn't it? Yeah, looking at others and being inspired.
But never ever look at that feed and go, that's better than mine is, or oh, why can't I do it like that? Because you're never going to see yours accurately anyway. Like, so you're never going to have an accurate frame of reference. But
and some people have been on Instagram, like you said, for years and years, and other people are new, or you might have not been focusing on it for a while, and now you're just coming to focus on it. It's a long game, I think.
It is, definitely, and I think also bearing in mind it's changing all the time. So just when you think you got one thing down, like when the shoppable links came along, I was like, oh, I was really excited about them. I was like, oh no, like now I've got to sit down and work out how to do this. Actually, though, I would like to say on that matter, for anyone that has them, because I was really stressed about them because I heard they were going to be really complicated to set up. Actually, really not very bad. So don't.
So have you set them up on yours?
I'm so happy about it. I've set them up on mine. And actually, the process on Facebook was super easy.
Oh, through Facebook?
Yeah, you do it through Facebook, and then basically, because I think there's certain, I can't remember if it's Shopify or something. If your website is through Shopify, where mine is not, mine's my own thing.
Yeah.
So if it's through Shopify, it's apparently much quicker, and like you can import your stuff.
Yeah, they've got like a partnership with Shopify, I think, and Instagram.
Yeah, so I've got to add mine manually, but the actual process is super like simple and unintimidating, and like it's just really actually nice for people to now be able to, like I say, back in the day when they sort of would send me a picture, people could just click through, and it's great, but it can be overwhelming and daunting. Just do you, I think, at the end of the day, and I think the most important thing is to have fun with it and be yourself, as hard as that is.
Because this is part of our business, right? We want to enjoy it. We don't want it to be like, oh, I've got to do Instagram. It's like, oh, great, I get to speak to people on Instagram today.
Exactly, and Instagram for a lot of people, I think, when it is your own business, is like your kind of social time in the day, like when you're getting to interact with other people. And don't look at numbers constantly. Obviously, we all want to grow. But what should mean or make a world of difference to you are those meaningful interactions. So if you're going and seeking out people and seeking meaningful interactions with them, they're going to come back and seek them with you. So that's the way I look at it. Don't look at it as completely separate to the real world. It is the real world. And we don't walk around just double tapping people in real life. We have meaningful, interactions with them. So that's, I think, my biggest piece of advice for anyone.
That's amazing. I love the way you think about it, and I think that really helps to bring it to life as well, as it's not just about strategy and how to grow it and how to make money on Instagram and things like that. Of course, as you said, we need to do that, but it's about those meaningful interactions, and it does make your business more enjoyable because then you look forward to having those.
And it gives you an actual kind of I guess what other people get maybe when they go into the office. It gives you that camaraderie around you, like I was saying to you the other day about looking at the online jewelry store, and I come on and I see there's a new post. It's like I know that there are loads of other jewelers that are also like thinking, oh, how am I going to do it today? Or like you've got a commission that you're not really familiar with, and you're going, oh my god, I don't know how to like tackle this or whatever. And if you let it be what I think it should be, rather than kind of a really competitive and like stressful place, if you let it be a place where you're able to grow and you're able to talk to people and you're able to find people that can help you or you can help them, then it becomes what it should be, I think.
Oh, brilliant. Well, listen, Caitie, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for all your lovely, helpful advice. If people want to find out more about you and, of course, follow you on Instagram and everywhere else, where can they go?
Well, yes, I mean, you can always come find me on Instagram. So on Instagram, I'm when Caitie Met Soda Jewellery. And then my website is caitiemetsoda.com. And on my website, we've got a blog section, which I'm trying to really grow into being very interactive. It's not just about jewellery. It's still kind of very much about life and figuring out how to do it. And jewellery is kind of one of the ways that I'm trying to do that. So I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter too, but honestly, if you go on Instagram and you send me a comment or you send me a message, I'm always like, hello, I'm on Instagram.
Instagram is a place to find you.
Exactly. Email hello@caitiemetsoda.com. So yeah, you can definitely get in touch. I would love that. But thank you so much for having me. It's been really lovely to chat. And
yeah, thank you for joining us, and enjoy the sunny day and enjoy Instagram.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, I need to. Actually, I should get Soda to say hello before we go. Soda!
Yeah, you should.
Oh, I'm going to get them. Soda! Hello! Soda! I know!
Oh, what a cutie.
He's like, the paparazzi is too much, Mom.
Wonderful. And then, all right, well, I will see you on Instagram.
Yes, you're on Instagram.